impregnated herself. Yes, she gave herself belle. I will explain. Josephine was a Catholic nun in the 1700s. But one day, other nuns noticed that she was pregnant, and immediately they cast her out of the convent. She tried to explain to them that she hadn't known any man, but no one was about to listen to that. Later on, it was discovered that Josephine was actually a virgin who came from a long line of hermaphrodites, meaning that she was able to self-impregnate spontaneously. This condition was what later killed her. Josephine died shortly after she gave birth to her daughter, Maria Rosenthal. The both of them have been said to be possessed. This is her skull. Why did they preserve it? I don't know. Recently, DNA has been taken from this specimen, and sure as day, her gene is unique to only her and her lineage. Women from her family are able to self-reproduce. Not much has been said to why they call her the first nun to be possessed by a demon. But this specimen, her head, is kept in a box in an unknown location. What would you do if you found out that your sister had the ability to self-impregnate?
This girl died and woke up in the mortuary only to find the mortician cleaning blood from her body. Mommy Essie had been involved in an accident where she was declared dead and deposited in the mortuary. When she woke up, she had a very unusual discussion with the mortician, who told her that she was dead and that the only reason she was awake and talking was because she was possessed by a demon. She tried to fight her way out, but the man injected her with formaldehyde, instantly sending her back to coma. Subsequently, he kept injecting her to keep her appearing dead till she was due for burial. But her luck shined when she woke up on the 10th day and he wasn't there. She staggered her way out of there and found her way back home. Mommy Essie is currently an actress with a verified account on Instagram.
Let's talk about Jeff the Killer. By the way, this is a creepypasta. He was a 13-year-old boy who had just moved to a new town with his mother and father. And he was already being bullied a lot in horrible ways that I can't even say on this video. One day at a party, the bullying got a little too out of hand. They disfigured him, lighting him on fire and throwing bleach on his face. He woke up in the hospital with his head wrapped in bandages. His eyelids were burnt off. When he took off the bandages, he noticed his face was all leathery and pale. He started laughing uncontrollably, and doctors just played it off as, oh, maybe it's the medicine we gave him, making him a little loopy. He started saying he loved his new face, and he eventually carved a permanent smile in his mouth because mentally he was broken. He was no longer that nice little 13-year-old boy. That's when he decided to get revenge on the bullies, taking them out one by one. This watermelon's good. He even took his family's life. What did they do to you, bro? What did they do? Now it's stated that he comes after anyone who stays up late. This was the last photo someone took of him before he got them. This picture is supposedly cursed.
This killer accidentally admitted to his crimes by accident when he forgot he was wearing a microphone while taking part in a documentary. This is how a true crime documentary exposed a killer. In 1971, Robert Durst met Kathleen McCormack and they got married. At the time of her disappearance in 1982, Kathleen had nearly graduated college. She was last seen by a witness at a dinner party where she appeared to be upset. She got a call from Robert and left. Robert admitted to having argued with Kathleen that night, but he said he put her on a train to New York and then never saw her again. Her friend called police to report her missing. Interestingly, Kathleen had been treated at a medical centre for facial bruises weeks prior to this and told the friend that Robert had done it. Robert had actually been dating someone else for some time prior to this and had been living separately to Kathleen. When her family broke into her cottage to try and find out where she was, they found the place had been trashed and her possessions put in the bin. Kathleen's family always believed that Robert was involved in her disappearance. In 2000, Susan Berman, a friend of Robert's, was found murdered. Now, she'd actually provided Robert with an alibi for Kathleen's disappearance. Now, pay really close attention to this next bit. Days after she was killed, a letter addressed to the Beverly Hills Police Department contained Susan's address and the word cadaver on it. On the envelope, Beverly was misspelled. Robert admitted in 2005 that Susan had called him shortly before her death to say that the police wanted to question her about Kathleen going missing. It's believed that Robert killed Susan to keep her quiet. In 2001, Robert's neighbour's body parts were found floating in Galveston Bay. Robert's elderly neighbour, Morris Black, had been killed and Robert was arrested. He was actually released on bail and fled and was found about a month later in Pennsylvania. He was found with $37,000 cash, 2 weapons, and interestingly, Morris Black's driving licence. In court, Robert claimed he was acting in self-defence. He said he'd accidentally shot Morris and dismembered his body. Due to lack of forensics, he only got 5 years in jail. This is where things get really crazy. HBO was filming a documentary called The Jinx. During production, Susan's stepson found a letter written by Robert. This contained the same spelling error in the word Beverly as the anonymous letter to police. This implicated Robert in the murder. Now, while filming the documentary, Robert needed the toilet. He forgot that he had a microphone still attached to him. He was recorded talking to himself. He said, "There it is, you're caught. You're right, of course, but you can't imagine. Arrest him." And then he said, "What a disaster. He was right. I was wrong." And finally he said, "I'm having difficulty with the question. What the hell did I do? Killed them all, of course."
My earliest age of memory of abuse is starting at the age of 5. My mother would beat us. She literally tied me down to a bed, used a sex toy on me, and after she was done, made me a burrito and told me that's what little boys do to girls. By the time I was 6, she videotaped me and my sister committing sex acts directed by her on a videotape. When I was 9, that's when the tape was found. They sold a trailer, and the tape happened to still be in the trailer. And the gentleman that had bought the trailer seen the images of me and my sister in interaction of sex acts with each other, and he turned it into the police. And everything just happened so fast. Like, we were ripped from her custody. Then it went to court where we were subpoenaed to testify against my mother for the tape. Still to this day, she doesn't believe she did anything wrong. It's my fault. I did it. I've lied. I made my mom serve 13 and a half years on a lie. Come on, say what you gotta say, Minnie. Come on, say it. Because you know you're a freaking liar. You know you held me down. You tied me to that bed. And you used that sex toy. Don't you ever say you didn't do that. I hate you. I want you dead.
Stop lying.
I hate you, big guts. You don't have a relationship with us because you caused that. Not because of us. And don't stand up here and lie. I'm sick of you. I cannot wait till the day.
This little girl got revenge on her killer from beyond the grave. On the 25th of January 2005, Katie Coleman finished school and went back to her home in Indiana, United States. Katie was 10 years old and lived with her mum and dad and sister. At 3 p.m. that day, her mum asked her to go to the dollar store to get toilet roll. Now, Katie knew the area well and it wasn't really far to go. After getting the toilet roll from the shop, Katie stopped at the bank to get a lollipop for her way home. However, when Katie's dad returned home, the little girl still wasn't back. Her parents called police and a few days later an Amber Alert was issued. A witness came forward to say that they'd seen a girl who looked like Katie in a truck. The driver was described as a skinny white man about 6 feet tall with short dark hair and fair complexion. Tragically, 5 days after going missing, Katie's body was found. It was in a creek just a few miles from her home. Disturbingly, her hands and feet were tied and she had been SA'd. It was determined that her cause of death had been drowning. 20-year-old Charles Hickman rang the police to confess. He said he and another man had abducted Katie after she'd witnessed a substance deal. He said they tried to scare her into not saying anything and they tied her up, but she ended up falling in and drowning. Disgustingly, this turned out to be a false confession. This obviously wasted police time and caused massive amounts of distress to Katie's family. Police continued to look for evidence and they did find a cigarette butt near to Katie's body. They tested it for DNA and it matched a man called Anthony Stockelman. Police compared the DNA on the cigarette butt to the DNA on Katie's body and it was a match. Anthony, a father of 2 young boys, was in the area that day visiting his mother. He entered a guilty plea and was given life in prison without parole. But this is not the only punishment that Anthony would receive. Now, Anthony claims that he was under the influence of extreme mental or emotional disturbance during the crime. He said this is because his father had died 6 months prior. Regardless, Anthony was imprisoned. Unlucky for Anthony, he was actually housed in a prison with Katie's cousin. Jared Harris was serving a sentence for burglary and was in the same wing as Anthony. Jared forcibly tattooed the words "Katie's Revenge" across Anthony's forehead. He wanted to brand Anthony for life for killing his young cousin.
A Domino's delivery driver meets pirates.
I gotta get the money first.
I know. Let me see. I'm not doing that.
I gotta get the money first.
Open the pizza.
2 pan pizzas.
Looked like they took something out of his car also, the 2 in the back that ran off. What a shame. Can't even earn an honest living delivering pizzas anymore.
After a walk with her dog, a woman notices that a man has followed her into her yard. Her doorbell camera recorded the entire incident. In the video, the woman picks up her dog and rushes inside her house after she sees the man behind her. Luckily, she locked her door, because the man walks up to the house and tries to get in. He tries to talk to her as he wiggles the doorknob. The woman called the police, but they didn't get to her house until 15 minutes later. The man was not even arrested, as police said trespassing is only a citation and he just needs to be seen in court.
Someone was murdered in my hotel room. I was in Vegas for the Taylor Swift concert a few weeks ago. But don't worry, that's not blood, that was just the paint underneath the makeup. It was a sold out show, so all of the hotels nearby had upped their prices and basically everywhere was sold out. So last minute we find this old place on the old Las Vegas Strip, which was right next to the Zach Baggins Museum. Now, if you guys have watched any of my videos, you know I'm a professional ghost hunter. And that place is super haunted. We decide to investigate and we start to set up. And then my friend Mel is like, is that blood on the wall? And me and Tori are like, there's no way there's blood on the wall right now. But there was in fact blood on the wall, and we even posted a photo on our YouTube channel. That's not even the worst part. So we do the whole investigation and we try to ask the ghost why there's blood on the wall. There was something dark there. We don't know what it was, but it was so strong it exploded our scare bear. Then we heard this loud thud and people talking outside. But every time we would look out, there was nobody there. Then we heard what sounded like a trunk slam shut and a car peeled out. We were so scared. We barely slept that night. I still can't believe a ghost told me.
This is why they started putting bells on grave sites. Being buried alive is probably one of the most terrifying things that could ever happen to you, and it actually happened a lot more than you think. One of the most infamous cases was of a woman who was buried alive not once, but twice. A woman named Alice drank a drink that contained poppy seed that put her into such a sedated state that the doctors pronounced her dead and quickly buried her. But a few days after they buried her, some children were playing above her gravesite, kind of weird, but okay, and they heard groans and screams coming from inside her grave. She had been fighting and clawing and doing everything she could to try to get out of her coffin, fighting with her literal life. A day later, they finally got in and got her body out, but she was so bloody and so bruised that she seemed like she was on the brink of death and didn't seem like she was moving. So, assuming that she had been alive for the last couple of days, but now she wasn't, they put her back in the grave and put her right back down. A graveyard worker was charged with the task of watching over her grave to make sure that if any other noises occurred throughout the night, they'd be able to pull her out. But sometime he decided that he didn't want to do that and he left to go to a local pub. However, she still hadn't died. She woke up in her coffin again. She scratched, she tore, she did everything she could, going into a full-blown panic about being put back in the ground. This time, when they went under to check her coffin to make sure that she had died, they found all the fresh scratches, all the fresh wounds from her trying to escape again, but this time, she had finally died. And that's why they started putting bells on grave sites.